7:03, start the meeting. Is there anybody who wishes to engage in public participation? If do, speak up or raise their hand on the Zoom. Seeing none. Item number 2 is the Wakefield Public Safety Building. First is administrative actions. Lynn, I made you co-host. You want to begin?
Yes, good evening, everybody. First on the agenda is the March 24th, 2022 PBC meeting minutes for the Wakefield Public Safety Building portion of the meeting.
Well, your motion.
I move that we approve the March 24th Public Safety Building minutes as written.
Here a second. Anyone?
Second.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none, are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, minutes are approved.
Lynn, you're not screen sharing yet.
Oh, I
You
got
see
it.
nothing.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
sorry.
Yes.
Try again. Sorry. Can you see it now?
There it is.
Now we can now. Yep.
Okay, sorry, I think it was on pause. Next on the agenda is the review of the March 2020 invoices. We had invoice from Wakefield for invoice number 17 for $15,020. This does include a pass-through for Sterling Corporation, which did the moving for the gym. And actually, maybe I have these out of order. I probably should have asked for an approval of OpM Contract Amendment 1, which actually approves Sterling's invoice. And for Wakefield to pay it.
Okay. And which, so do you want to do that first or should we
Yes,
approve it?
let's skip through to that first. So in your meeting package, you should have seen the OpM Contract Amendment number 1. And as I said, it was from Sterling Corporation. What they did was they moved the gym equipment, disassembled it and reassembled it and moved it. Adam might want to give a little bit more information on that, but their services were $3,200. And then for our administrative fee on that is 10% for our contract.
And what line item in the budget does this go against?
This is coming out of the owner's contingency and moving to the OpM line item, so OpM reimbursables line item, so that we can pay Sterling directly.
So we didn't have in the budget anything for moving expenses?
Chip, I believe the understanding was that the town was going to move it, Chris Pierce perhaps, but due to the weight of this and kind of the complexity, you have to break this equipment down. It's got pulleys and cables and such. We hired a professional mover. So we actually had an original proposal that was almost $10,000. We brought in this vendor, and this is actually for 2 mobs and some gym mats, and we feel it's a very reasonable cost.
Any other questions regarding the OpM Contract Amendment number 1 for moving services?
I move that we approve. I move that we approve OpM Contract Amendment number 1.
Mayor, second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
Janine?
Yes.
Unanimous. Did I miss anybody? Jason, I don't think is here tonight. Okay.
Apologize for having to take that out of order there, but so going back to the March 2020 invoices, Left Field has included Sterling's invoice in our invoice number 17. So our total is $15,020. And HKT Architects, the invoice number
Let's
14.
just do one at a time.
Yeah, I got them, Lynn.
Okay.
I'll walk right through them. But the
Okay.
question I have is, with this 3,520 now coming out of our contingency, what's left in our contingency?
There's a budget update coming, but the owner's contingency has 133,958 left in it after this draw.
Thank you. Okay, so I move that we approve Left Field invoice number 17 for the sum of $15,020. That includes the 3,520 for Sterling Corp.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine,
yes,
unanimous.
I move that we approve HKT Architects invoice number 14-022023 dated 3/11 for the sum of $1,184.39.
Second.
Any discussion? Just for people who don't, this is for their February billing. Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine,
yes,
unanimous.
I move that we approve HKT Architects invoice number 15-022023 dated 4/6/22 for the sum of $34,096.16.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine,
yes,
unanimous.
I move that we approve bond building invoice number 3 dated 3/31/22. So is this for the sum of $54,678.44? So what month is this for?
Mark,
Yep, March,
Mark,
For March?
yeah.
correct.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a quick question from Wayne. Can maybe someone give us a brief overview of what that $54,000 includes?
Yeah, it's right listed. If you go farther down in the packet, it's all there.
So maybe-
Right.
Maybe you can bring that up.
Maybe
Yep.
someone can
Lynn?
tell us verbally?
Yeah, I can give you a brief overview. So about half of that is our general conditions, sort of mobilization and so on. We got a little bit of GRs in there, builder's risk, and then a couple of the subs mobilizations.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine,
yes,
unanimous. All right, Lynn?
Okay, pass over that. Next on the agenda, just a quick update of the budget. We have expended 10% of the budget to date. We've committed 90% of that budget. The OPM has expended 42% of their budget, and the architect has expended 62% of their budget. The construction contingency is at $283. $1,219.
Oh, God, you scared the hell out of me, Lynn.
keeping you on your toes.
That's
And
right.
the owner's contingency is 133,958. The full, it's in your packet as well. So if you have any other questions, happy to answer them.
Are there any questions regarding the budget update? Hearing none. Next item.
Adam is going to go through some of the procurement updates.
Sure, thanks, Lynn. I'll just talk briefly about furniture. So earlier in the week, Janet from HKT and I and the furniture provider had a meeting. We reviewed some color selections that are still outstanding. And we also are looking at some value engineering opportunities. So we should have these things wrapped up. We're putting a deadline on ourselves for April 15th for that, and we're trying to beat a manufacturer's cost increase. So we are going to hold firm to that date. In regards to technology, cybercom procurement with the town IT is ongoing. There's no update for this committee just yet. I'll also add here that from a security perspective, we had a quote from Stanley, and it was over budget. And instead of doing that, the town has confirmed that they're going to self-perform that work, which is of great benefit to the project.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Any questions regarding that update? Hearing none. Construction update, Lynn?
Go ahead, Adam. First on the agenda is move and site mobilization update.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dario with a schedule. But early on Tuesday, Dario and I met with the building inspector. We picked up our building permit. We moved on from there. We went to the engineering department. We picked up all of our excavation permits required. So that was a good milestone. We did start the project officially on Wednesday. That's yesterday. And with that, if anybody drives by the site fence is now up. We have closed the visitors lobby, and we have opened the temp entrances for both police and fire. There's separate entrances on Princess Street. So additionally to that, we've moved some of the folks inside the building, specifically the reception area, the records area, the prosecutors, and police admin out of their areas, which are now construction areas, and into their swing spaces.
All right. Any questions regarding the move and site mobilization update?
I'm going to add one more thing, Joe, if you don't mind. So
Sure.
From a public perspective, we have, I did reach out, and I talked, I walked and talked with a few of the commercial abutters, some changes in traffic as a result of the construction fence. We just wanted to make them be aware before the fence went up. I think they appreciated that. Additionally, the police department has issued this to their Facebook page. And one more thing, we have published this through Jen McDonald on the town's webpage.
Adam, we have a more updated one, right? This isn't actually how the fence is.
Well, the fence is in green and the red chip is
right, but doesn't the fence go in front of the entire building?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And
All right, this is the old one. This is the old plan. There's a new plan. So
yeah,
wherever we're putting out there, we should put the appropriate one out.
You're right. Chip, we had a few revs of this one this week.
No, I know, but that's
why
it's showing parking that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah. It's true, Chip. We have an updated slide to this. This was
Chip, can I interrupt?
Please.
Steve Spurrier here. There is the updated version that is on the Facebook page.
Okay, all right,
Those-
not this one.
Correct.
Okay,
And Chief, do we know if that's on the town's website as well, the updated one?
I'll check right now, Joe.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions regarding this update?
This is John. It looks like the updated one is on the town Facebook page.
Okay,
So,
great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right,
All
the
right.
next is a look ahead.
I'm going to hand off to Dario for this.
You got it. How's it going, guys? So yeah, this schedule here lists line by line of sort of our upcoming activities on the project over the next couple of weeks. For the sake of this meeting, I'll kind of give sort of a bigger picture update where we stand. Like Adam said, we mobilized on Wednesday the 6th. So we established our fence, our dumpster, and the temp toilets. And this week we wrapped up the enabling work, both for police and for fire as well, as far as the public entryways go and their swing spaces inside of the building. And then demo of the lobby, existing lobby and records is well underway. Sort of the memorabilia and the salvage items have been extracted successfully and turned over. The remainder of this week will be all sort of interior demo. We have electricians in the building on site chasing circuits. We have plumbers scoping pipes in the restrooms. And then sort of next week is where we actually start seeing some of the outside work. Demo of the exterior bump out, so the old 1950s entryway, that will start then. That police banner will be saved, and then we'll work our way down the brick to the foundation. And then we'll get sort of into saw cutting of the asphalt to prep for the excavation and utility work, and removal of curbs, trees, pavers shortly after that. So week 1 of construction in the books, and we're quickly moving.
Any questions regarding the look ahead schedule?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there any asbestos to be encountered, or is that anticipated, or what is that?
Yep, good question. So that little bump out that I was just talking about, where that old 1950s entryway is, there's a little bit of hot flashing, we'll call it. That there's a little bit of asbestos work there that will commence.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I want to remind everyone in the public and the permanent building committee and everyone else that there will be a groundbreaking ceremony at 9 o'clock and April 15th. Very brief ceremony. And everyone is invited on the permanent building committee. Any questions? Lynn?
That's it for the public safety building. Do we want to move on to the?
Before we do, Chief Scory, is there any issues?
No issues. Busy 2 days, yesterday and today. Everything went well. Big thank you to the DPW for moving people around. It was work well done, pretty seamless there, and construction's well underway in the lobby. They hit it hard today.
Yeah, I agree with the assistants from DPW. We thank them for their efforts and work done in this so far. It's been great. Deputy Chief Calabrese, anything?
No, all good on our end. Thank you.
All right. Chief Sullivan?
No, things went pretty good. We lost power and administration for a few hours this afternoon, but that was straightened out, and
Okay.
we should be all set now.
Great. Anybody have anything else regarding the public safety building project? Thank you very much.
Good night.
All right, good night. Item number 3, the high school.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thanks, Dario. Take care.
Have a good night.
Okay, first on the agenda for the high school project is obviously nothing.
Yeah, okay, well, that'll be the end of the meeting. Thanks, Lynn. You did a great,
Well, I don't know what's happening to the,
well, we tried.
While that gets straightened out, I move that we accept the minutes of March 24th in regards to the high school as written.
Here a second.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there any objections to approving the March 24th, 2022 meeting minutes for the Permanent School Building Committee for the Wakefield High School? Hearing none, the minutes are accepted. All right, Lynn, we gave you, we stalled for you, so.
Let's try it one more time.
Just have to read it real fast.
Yes. Okay. All right. So next on the agenda, I'm probably, well, I was going to take the contract amendment out of order, but we haven't billed against it, so we can
Right, so-
go with, we can do the March 2022 invoices.
Yeah, I move that we approve OPM feasibility study for left field invoice number 11 dated 3/31 for the sum of $22,000.
second,
Any discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
yes,
Tom,
yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes,
Janine,
yes,
unanimous.
I move that we accept the A&E feasibility study SMMA invoice 0056609 dated 3/7/22 for the sum of $71,500.
second,
Any discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
yes,
Tom,
yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes,
Janine,
yes,
So let me just explain quickly, the A&E feasibility study and the environmental and site are both on the same invoice. I have to break them out separately because you can see this propay code on the left-hand side. That's how we code it with MSBA. So the total of invoice 56609 is actually 86,900.
so I also move that we approve the environmental and site portion of invoice 0056609 dated 3/7 as well for the sum of $15,400, making the total invoice $86,900.
second,
any discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
yes,
Tom,
yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes,
Janine,
yes,
unanimous.
Okay, next on the agenda is the OPM Contract Amendment number 1, and this is for the estimating services. That's a reimbursable under our contract, and this it's for AM Fogarty, and it is for both the preferred schematic report estimate and the schematic design estimate, and his total is 24,300, and then with our 10% administrative fee. We'll talk about in the next slide our budget revision request that we have to make to move this money.
So Lynn, this has to do with the estimate they've already done, is that correct?
This is the estimate that they performed, the PSR estimate, and then it'll be also for the estimate that they will perform after schematic design.
Okay.
This was a contract amendment that Shane had put together, and I thought it was already approved, but I found it in the files when I was going through and realized that it hadn't been signed, and I went back through the meetings and I couldn't find where he had submitted it.
so is this an increase to the budget or just a shift in funds?
It's a movement of funds.
Okay. Thank you. So I move that we approve the OPM contract amendment number 1 for left field.
There's
For the
second.
sum of $26,730.
second.
Thanks, Tom. Any discussion?
Joe, I got a quick question, just prior process. What a contract amendment, what is that like? So did that mean we didn't know we were going to be cost estimating out of the original? I don't get what we're amending, something we thought we
So when
were doing this?
when we do our budget, it's in there that states that the estimating services are an ad service or a reimbursable expense. And the reason for that is that oftentimes we hire the CM in advance. And that would mean that we would not carry this estimator forward to the schematic design. However, lately with the volatility in the market, we've been doing 3 estimates at schematic design because that's a very important estimate. So that's what we established the budget for the remainder of the project on. So at the time, we wait until we get, sometimes also we will, as you saw, we had estimates at the PDP phase as well. Sometimes we're asked to also provide another estimate at that phase, which in this particular case, we did not. We only provided an estimate for the PSR and then also an estimated cost for the schematic design estimate.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Tim,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine?
Yes.
Unanimous. Okay,
Okay, along with the approval of OPM Contract Amendment 1, we have to do a budget revision request to the ProPay budget, which is in the MSBA's online budget system. So in this instance, we're moving the $26,730 from the other budget line to the OPM feasibility study and schematic design budget line. And then, so this leaves us with $419,634 left in the other budget. There's only 4 budget lines in the ProPay system for the feasibility study and schematic design line. So that's, you'll see the budgets break down further when we get into the next phase of the project.
So I move that we approve budget revision request number 2 for the same sum of $26,730.
Second.
any discussion? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
excuse me.
So,
Tom,
but, oh, sorry.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine?
Yes.
Unanimous.
So budget revision request 2 has to be signed by the superintendent and the chair of the school committee and the town administrator. So I'll be sending that out for signatures. Next is a request for a approval to make a staff change with departure of Shane. I'll be taking over the majority of the things that Shane did. However, I will have Tim Baker will be helping me, as well as Linda Laporta, which is in the background, who helps us out on various things as well. But she was already on the org chart, but we would be adding Tim Baker to the org chart, and we have to get permission from both the SBC and MSBA. So if you are in agreement with this staff change, we'll send you a letter that you will have to put on town letterhead that copies our letter to you, which you should have seen in your packet that I sent you, with the one that goes on the town letterhead, and you have to submit it to MSBA for their approval as well.
Do we get to vote you out, huh, Lynn? Is that it?
Don't you
Yes.
even dare suggest that, Joe. We'll vote you out first.
Oh. When? All right.
I think Tim's on the line here. So
Yeah, I
Tim,
thought Tim
you want to
said-
introduce yourself?
I'm Tim Baker. I'm going to be helping Lynn out on this Wakefield High School project. I've worked with some of the committee members before, Joe and Chip, on the at the tail end of the Wakefield the Galvin Middle School project. So it's good to be working in town again. And I live right next door, so if we ever have in-person meetings again, this is very convenient for me.
Good to have you join us, Tim. All right. I guess we need a motion for this, Lynn?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
All right.
so I move that we
Here's our
accept the
stance.
staff
Go ahead.
change as discussed.
I hear a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Oh, can this is Phil. I got a thing. So when we hired Left Field, in the original, we had all those binders and we read everyone's percentages that they're available for these projects. And we knew we had Left Field on public safety already. Is Left Field confirming that everyone in this org chart matches up to what you had proposed in terms of availability throughout this project?
You're getting a lot more of my time than what was originally presented in our contract. But you will get equal time from everybody else that when we made our proposal. But just the nature of what occurred here, you'll have a lot more of my time than you had before.
That's a good thing. Thanks, Lynn. That's a good thing for us. I don't know how you feel about that, but we appreciate it.
She doesn't get to vote.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes,
Janine.
Yes.
All right, Lynn, I guess it's unanimous.
Thank you. Just a quick budget update. As I said, we only have 4 budget lines, so there's not much to report on other than we are 35% expended and 79% committed. So we're in good shape.
Any questions regarding the budget update? Hearing none.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to SMMA to go over a design alternative update, and then we'll talk about cost afterwards.
Brian, do you need to be
Yeah.
co-host? Is it
Please.
Brian?
It is Brian, yep.
Okay. All right, if I can find you. There you are.
Hiding again. Oh, I lost my Zoom. There it is. Okay, are we seeing the, oh, a little bit too far along. Okay, so tonight the cost discussion is really the centerpiece, I think, but we did want to give you not so much an update. I guess it's an update graphically of where we are. This is about as far as we take the diagramming of the options at the PSR stage. We have been working with our team to bring everything up to a certain level. But also, as we looked at the plans, we found that we were being a little bit overly conservative with the footprint. So we have trimmed a bit in terms of the areas. That does not mean that any space has been reduced in terms of the target areas that are in the summary of spaces. It just means that we are in better alignment with that spreadsheet now than we had been before. And so we feel really good about where we are with all of these being good representatives of the space that's included. So to jump in, the option 1 code upgrade it makes the school safe, accessible, and serviceable. It includes new MEP systems, new envelope, new roof, etc. It doesn't meet the needs of the district in terms of the educational program that has been developed. And so that is significant. The option does not include changes to spatial configurations. So spaces that are undersized or not well located relative to the rest of the program, things like that. The fact that there are somewhat sprawling corridors, the lack of a center, et cetera, et cetera. Add to that the disruption that would take place with the renovation, which can be done very intelligently and done in stages, but still it's hard to avoid the need for moving populations out of the school and into modulars. You'll see that as a line of, actually there's that level of detail I don't have in front of me in terms of the cost, but this is a factor in option 2 as well, that we're building directly on top of the existing footprint, and therefore the disruption is a really big part of what happens with that scheme. We have also developed our site sections a little bit further to help in the understanding and differentiation between the schemes. This is the current condition. So on the right, on the very right is Farm Street, and then working to the left, we are up about 12 feet above the lower level at the parking lot, which remains somewhat flat over the field and over to the wetland buffer on the left. And you'll see slightly different configurations as we go through these. Onto the option 2, addition renovation, which when built will feel like essentially a new building, but with some compromises in terms of adjacencies, with some of the elements being remaining in place, with the gym on one end of the building. Again, we've taken the opportunity to kind of tuck in some of the edges of this footprint. And so we found a little bit more space for green in front of the building toward the goal of having a very pedestrian-friendly entrance area to the school, and not sort of just a drop-off and sort of runway. So the other feature, the big feature of this scheme is maintaining a kind of a slice through the center of the building that lands at level 2, sort of at number 2 in the diagram, which is the outdoor common space, opening out to Beasley Oval. This is the plan of the existing school. The blue areas show areas that would be renovated in option 2. Mainly the field house, the phys ed locker rooms, weight room, etc., the upper level gym. Part of this, so the renovation here entails a lot. It is basically a gut renovation. We'd need to install an elevator to make the upper level of seating, the balcony of the gym accessible. Lots of narrow corridors and small rooms throughout the phys ed area. On the other end, the other sort of bookend in blue is maintaining the Savings Bank Theater and the media center in its current location, tearing down the lion's share of the classroom elements and rebuilding those new. What this means is the diagram that this even harkens back to the interview scheme that has that central wedge of space becoming the new heart of the school, which is connected to all of the segments, if you will. It still has an element of inefficiency due to some of the existing clusters. The desire to keep this upper right corner stacked over the foundation and moving the loading dock down below so that we have more frontage of classrooms, the LGI out front. What we have here is a series of these sort of interconnected rings. So it's not an ideal layout by any means, but it would be a massive improvement to the current configuration, which again has not really that central critical mass element that you have with the dining commons. Now, as we go down the central stair, we arrive at the lower level, dining commons, which has the servery that has the service corridor out to the loading dock on the right. Media center would be opened up with glazing to the outdoor commons, so there's borrowed light getting into it. The commons also is a transition space to the auditorium. Music is adjacent to the auditorium. Parts of it migrate into the newly efficient PE area, locker rooms, and then transitions over to the field house. So wrapping around music, we've got more art rooms, and also the shared broadcast space with WCAT. On the lower right is the major STEM cluster, which is intact. The humanities is more sort of broken into two segments. Level 3 is not the most efficient layout, but it does provide a connectivity of the elements on level 3, which all look out to the east over the field. There's an opportunity for roof terraces. They can be programmed in many different ways, as if you're on the ground. There could be environmental science with lab, greenhouse, or perhaps art rooms could move up and have spill out space at an upper level. So those are the plan views. And here's the section which shows the transition of that grade, about a 12-foot difference being negotiated by that major stair element, which has the ability to act as sort of an amphitheater as well on the interior. And then you're on the ground at the back and really just well connected to the field back there. It's not necessarily the back anymore. It becomes another front of the school. So that is a slice through the section of the school and site. And then we've updated our three-dimensional imagery as well, which I think depicts all of what I've discussed, encapsulates it, I think, fairly well for the submission. So that is option 2, the addition renovation. Option 3, again, is a new building on a new site on the Beasley Oval current site, which means no need for the major disruption and dislocation during construction. Not that there won't be inconveniences and noise and all of the other things, but it's a different. I think there's a different scale of issue to be considered that's relieved here by having the site in back to build on. Again, there's been a slight reduction of the footprint, but the elements and the sort of basic layout is the same. The site team will continue to work in schematic design to integrate all the elements and find that balance that we're looking for between vehicular needs and parking alongside the desire to have a pedestrian-friendly campus. So those are, really elements that will come a bit later. But the diagram, I think, establishes the intent quite well. Moving into the plan of the school, the dining commons is the receiving space. The admin is out front, able to monitor activities at the front of the school. Also can become a bit of a storefront on the interior of the school to provide services, and is central to the academic wings, which are pushing out to the south. Outdoor commons is through the back of the dining commons. And then to the right are the phys ed, auditorium, and music, along with WCAT tucked along the north side. Moving up to level 2, again, we have a certain clarity of the diagram in terms of the stacking of the educational elements, the classroom wings, and now the media center is really the central kind of hub, the academic and intellectual hub for the school on that side. And then there's a bridge element over to the gym, the phys ed alternatives, and the gymnastics gym, which are all aligned along a corridor at level 2. And the upper auditorium is also accessible at that level. Level 3 brings the academics up a 3rd story. Again, very efficient. The character of the classroom neighborhoods, these interior space adjacencies and potential touchdown areas and active corridors are things that we'll look at in early schematic design and in terms of how they actually work, and specific adjacencies of particular rooms is where we'll get to in the next round. Option 3 section shows a bit of the challenge in terms of the cut and fill of the site. We want to build up the base of the building a little bit above the field. And so we'll likely need to import material to do that. And then when we get to the point of building the field in the final phase of the new construction, we'll be exporting material, it appears, that we does not align well with just the phasing of the construction. So that's reflected in the cost. And there was little difference between options A and B that we had been developing. So we heard the comments in favor of having more parking near the building. And so that is the option we are carrying into the report. And here's the imagery of option 3, the new building on Beasley Oval. And I'll hand it back to Lynn for the cost.
Before we do into that, Lynn, does anybody have any questions or discussion regarding options 1, 2, 3?
I have a question on number 3.
Yep.
Brian, as far, looking at the left side of that, having some experience with schools and loading docks, and if we're bringing in tractor trailers of product into the gym or the kitchen, how will they get into the school?
Right, so the image on the left, the loading dock is on that end of the school.
Now, I just did that there could be tractor trailers, right?
That's correct.
Is there enough room to back a tractor trailer in there?
There will be. There's a lot of study that we still need to do on this. And the imagery here is I think, developed without really a clear focus on the trucking aspect of this, which we obviously will take extremely seriously. But there would be a way for a truck to come in and back into this area. It is very tight the way we've shown it. We will look for ways to open that up on that corner. But I think you've highlighted something that is definitely a challenge. One thing we've found is that, and the option image on the right here, which shows that we had excess classrooms in the academic wing. If we were to subtract those differently, we would be able to move that half of the building over and really open this end up more by pushing everything to the south. So that's something we have to look at very carefully. We know that there are concerns that there are neighbors in close proximity on that side. And I believe we already have a comment on the public board to that effect. And so we're very aware of this. We, deal with this issue on every project. And so we'll serve the project with the utmost sensitivity to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding options 1, 2, 3?
I should note that we did receive two emails onto the project website from neighbors on Wiley Street, which I think is the street right behind this option 3, new construction. And with varying concerns about noise, but also to impact of construction on their homes. So we have responded to them, but we will keep their comments at the forefront as we continue to develop the project, depending on which option is selected.
Thanks, Lynn. Any other discussion?
Joe, it's Phil. I got a quick thing. So there's a softball field tucked in there, right? The Blatts field. And I'm looking at the picture on the left right there.
It is here.
So
you can see it on the right.
There it is over there. So I don't know how often people hit softballs over the fences and stuff, but with parking and I know we got a limited space. I'm just noticing how tight it is in that corner. So, and I guess the orientation of the building to Wayne's point has to be figured out still for the loading dock. So
yeah.
You can't eat too much into that softball. So I don't know how much that building could be pushed towards the street. Was it Hemlock, right? Push it that way rather than the other way. But I know you guys are still, so that you're still working. These are just still really rough. Like, is this what you're envisioning the school to look like still, or are these just sort of like how close are we to what you think you're recommending the school's going to look like in general form? Is this pretty close?
I think in broad strokes, yes. The fact that the classrooms are on the south side and they form sort of a space between them. And now how those bars sort of crank open or closed, or whether it slides, and are factors that we will look at in more detail. The idea that there's a central commons that links it together, and then that the other major large spaces, the gym, the auditorium, are on the left. When we go to schematic design, we still have, if this option is chosen as the preferred, we're going to study whether, the auditorium and gym could switch places. And there's some study that still can be done there. I don't think that will yield a better or more spacious condition on that corner. It might actually be a little more difficult. But yeah, I would say these are diagrams that are meant to depict the big elements, the big clusters. But there is definitely shaping of the geometry that we will do that might end up looking a bit different.
Is the height of these buildings a certain height where you wouldn't want to go higher rather than wider? Like, is there, what's the thinking behind how you rate how many floors high schools are?
Sure, and we the more floors, the more difficult it gets for some folks to go up and down, 3 levels. To add a 4th, it would potentially, if we did the academics and 4 floors, you would save about 10,000 square feet, which is, not a small element by any means. I think we need to hold that in reserve. When we go another floor higher, we start to trigger some different code requirements that are just, there's a bit more cost and they're a little bit more onerous in terms of the design. But we've done that before. We've done 4-story schools. Somerville is a 6-story. Because it sits on a hillside, it's a unique case. So we try to keep the levels as low as we can. if we find that there's a significant improvement by going up another level, we can definitely look at that.
I also think that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
I also think that if you look at the academic wing there, if you were to rotate it toward the field a little more, you might find you could pick up some more space and move the building more toward Hemlock. I don't know. I think that SMMA can, as they continue to develop the design, will find opportunities to try to pick up space on this side of the building.
Any other questions or comments on the options?
Yeah, I have a comment, Brian. On the diagram to the right, is WCAT to the far right? Is that where that is, or is it to the left where that jets out, or is that classroom?
In the right-hand image, it is on the right side.
Right. Okay, my question to you is what was brought up about trucking and so on. We have a production truck that we're going to be loading and unloading at different times. Will there be room on the right to be able to access that?
We'll make sure that you have the space you need, definitely. I think the image is a little bit deceiving because this is not a photograph. These are trees that our visual artist has dropped in. Okay. And really this space kind of flares out. We are limited by the wetland, which is more to the left, but there's definitely some space back here that we can carve out and create, a highly serviceable loading dock.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other questions on the 3 design options? Hearing none, Lynn?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, on to costs. So we had 2 estimators that went through all of the design documents and narratives that SMMA provided. SMMA's cost estimator was PM&C, and the estimator that we hired for the town was AM Fogarty. I will say that these 2 cost estimators probably do the large percentage of the K through 12 schools in terms of estimating. They're probably the go-to estimators for school construction. So as you can see, we went through a reconciliation process on March 31st, and we went through the construction cost, and we were able to reconcile both estimates to be fairly close, certainly less than the 1% that we like to get to. This first scheme that we're looking at is the new construction on Beasley Oval, and the construction costs for this school is $123,033,958 from PM&C versus AM Fogarty's estimate of $123,228,909. As you can see, when we get down to the markups to those construction costs, there was a little bit of a difference in opinion on where the market was going in terms of escalation. I think the biggest difference between these 2 estimates lay in the escalation line. There's about $3 million difference in their opinions on escalation. I think as we continue to move forward and get into the schematic design, we'll really focus on these marked up construction costs a little bit more and bring those closer to alignment as we move forward. I just want to caution you that all of these costs are for cost comparison purposes. As you can see, we're very early in the design process, and once we focus and select a preferred scheme, we'll be able to dig into that one scheme and start to define a little bit more of the building so that the estimators have more to go on in terms of estimating. But
Lynn, I just want to, I think the point you made is just an extremely, excuse me, important point that, you know, we right now are not saying this is what the school is going to cost to build. Right? This is not, this is not a final construction cost. This is literally to make a comparison so that we have something to go 3 versus 2 versus 1 and pick a way to go forward. You know, I don't want the headline to read in the paper that, you know, the design is done and the price is set, because that's not the case at all. It's just really important to remember that as we go through these.
You're right, Chip. I mean, these are for comparison purposes at this stage right now, to kind of help in the decision-making process when we decide on which one is the preferred option. You know, same with soft cost. Right now, we're estimating those soft costs on the total estimated cost. And the next phase, when we really hone in on some of these markups, we should see those come closer together, which would affect the soft costs as well, because right now we're using an industry standard for soft costs, but in the schematic design phase, we'll really hone in on those numbers and hopefully bring those down. But for now, the new construction option is in the range of $219.4 million to $224 million in costs. And the next is the add renovation option. And again, the construction costs are very close, 111.9 million versus 111.8. The total cost is running from 207.6 million to 218.8 million. And there's approximately a $12 million difference between the new construction and the add renovation. It should be noted that with add renovation, you should expect a higher change order rate, only because of the unforeseen factors that you may usually encounter in renovation projects. And then the cost for the next is the cost of the base repair. The construction cost is 72 million versus 73 million, with a total estimated project cost of 139 million to 143 million. And again, looking at these all together, we're running between 219.5 and then 138.9. Typically, we use the designer's cost estimator as the base, only because they work more closely with the designer as throughout the process, and then when they tend to have a little bit more information on the design once we, when we get into the estimating process. So that's where we stand overall on the 3 options that we have been continuing to look at. We're hoping that people have a chance to really look at this, think about the cost, and that we can get to a preferred solution by the next meeting at the latest, so that we can continue to prepare our preferred schematic report so that we can submit it on time to the MSBA on May 4th.
Right, and we can discuss that tonight. And if there's a movement or if people think they have a perceived preference tonight, and we can make that choice even as soon as tonight, that that would help the design team and the OPM team greatly to give it more time. So I know Lynn's saying next week, but if people felt strongly they had an opinion now, we should discuss it. And if we feel like we're ready to make a decision, then we should try to do that tonight.
Phil, you had a question, your hand up?
Yeah, hey, so in the option 3, do we know why AM doesn't have a number for abatement and demo?
It's included in the number above.
They included in their regular general conditions.
Yes.
So I get that these are rough estimates based on a, rough picture of what we're trying to do, and we shouldn't publicize these numbers, but this is a recorded meeting and these numbers, my experience is the first numbers you throw out for any project are what everyone remembers, no matter how many times you tell them not to remember it. We're basing our decision on these numbers that we're being told we shouldn't focus too much on. So I guess we have to believe that these numbers are somewhere in the ballpark of some sort of school for these options. And we also, like, in your experience, at the end of the day, when we get to, is there a certain percentage that real estimates, like how close do these estimates end up being in other projects? And again, I know we're sort of in dreamland estimates because we don't have like a lot of stuff, but like we have to use these numbers to make a decision.
Well, typically, at this phase, we're very conservative because we don't want to get to the next phase and all of a sudden the numbers come in higher yet. I mean, with the volatility in the market, that has happened on a few projects, but for the most part, these are supposed to be conservative enough that when we do our schematic design estimates, that we should be at or below these numbers.
Like I feel, and I have no basis in this, that these numbers are probably low compared to what this high school is going to cost, no matter what option we're looking at. And I have no basis for that, but just based on the world we live in and the market, look at what happened at the public safety building in the few years that was delayed, and that was before everything hit the fan. So I get it with these estimates. People are going to remember these numbers, and I just if we're comfortable that, I know they're not like real numbers, but they're real enough for us to make a decision and you're comfortable with them, then I'm okay making a decision tonight. First time going through something like this for such a large project, is trying to figure out the gap of what happens, and what happens if it comes in really high after MSBA sees these numbers. Do they tell us to get lost if real numbers come in crazy high? I guess that's a last minute question in there.
They do make us jump through hoops to explain why they come in higher. Like I said, I mean, these numbers are set so that the hope is that we're not at the next phase, we are at or below these numbers. Under normal circumstances, I would say that with these two estimators, we generally always fall at or below. But it's hard to say that with absolute certainty now, given the way the market has behaved over the last year and a half.
Right, so we couldn't just add a line item saying 20% extra, like we couldn't just add 20% to this up front, expecting that things are going to be higher.
Look at your escalation.
Oh, can you see?
We could, and that's why I was trying to explain, you see a lot, that there's certainly a difference in opinion on escalation here between the two estimators. So in this instance, instead of taking PM&C's number, we could move forward using AM Fogarty's number, since it is the higher number. I don't want to artificially bump these numbers up. I mean, I think that these numbers are reflective of where the market is today, and a educated estimate on what the markup percentages will be, based on when we anticipate starting construction. Again, the market may flatten out and start to go down. I don't know, but they are taking into consideration what has occurred over the past 15 months or so.
Just to throw my opinion out there.
Wayne, hold on a minute. There's people that have raised their hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tim O'Brien.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to take a moment. Doug couldn't be here this evening. He had a conflict, but we've spoken at length about it, and I just wanted to mention that it's the opinion of the district at this point that option 3 is the one that best suits our needs and that we believe would be the least disruptive to our, day-to-day business and learning. So I just wanted to voice our support for that option. Just hearing that the possibility is that a decision could be made tonight or soon. Just wanted to make sure we reinforce that.
Thank you, Tim. Jonathan?
Thanks, Joe. Just a question around the MSBA reimbursement piece of it. Other than the temporary classrooms, which I think we've talked about are not reimbursable by MSBA, are there any significant differences in reimbursement structure for new construction in option 3 versus the ad reno in option 2?
We do get a percentage of reimbursement above the standard for ad renovation, and it depends on how much of the existing school you're actually renovating versus how much you're tearing down and constructing new. So they take the square footage of the renovated space and they apply it to a formula, and you may get an additional reimbursement points for that. What I can do for you, maybe prior to the next PBC meeting, is try to take the information I currently know about from what I've gathered from MSBA on what will be eligible and what won't be eligible. I can try to put it into they have a form called, it's a total project budget form, which is a form 3011, which can kind of give you an idea of how much additional reimbursement you may get for an ad reno.
Okay. I think that would be helpful, just because obviously the total project cost is informative, and certainly I don't expect any precision on this, given that this is a very, very high level kind of comparative estimate. But it would be helpful to know if there's a material difference in the reimbursement for those two options, just as we think about them. This is probably stating the obvious, but in option 1, $140 million to end up with a school that doesn't meet our needs just feels like a pretty bad outcome. I don't think any of us are surprised by that, but just to throw my 2 cents in on that one. Thank you.
And I will say MSBA will not reimburse for the base repair.
Okay. At all?
So that makes it even at all. So.
All right.
Why do they have it? Well, anyway, Wayne, you had a question?
Just a quick comment. I see there's an escalation on there for almost 10%. Going back a few years when we were building a school in North Reading, the estimate came in at X. And when the building came on to be built and the dollars came in, the estimate came in at X plus. And believe me, once you put a number out, as Phil said, this is pretty complicated. I'm not sure when we're going to break ground, but just a comment. If we say it's X and it comes in at X plus, it could be a real issue in a public building, in a public, we're all on the line as making comments.
So Wayne, the recommendation that we're going to make to this committee is to bring a CM on board prior to schematic design, prior to when we do our schematic design estimate, and have them be a third estimator. Only because I think it'll be very important to get input from a construction manager on what it would cost to do this project. So before we submit the costs for the project that we will have to stick with throughout the life of the project, we want to have the benefit of costs from a CM.
All right, thank you. Just another quick comment and I'll wrap up. We all know right now, what's the cost of, we think you know what the cost of the vocational is going to be, like 300+ million. So, and we know the cost is going to be to the town, and it's going to hit us in the wallet being a taxpayer. It's a lot to swallow in a short time, but I guess if one is 300 million, and this is coming in at only 200 million, well, that's pretty good, but I don't know. Just my comments. Thank you.
Is there any other questions, comments, discussion? All right.
Joe, I'd just like to add to Jonathan's comment, and I appreciate the wanting to know what the reimbursement is, but until the design is actually done, again, we're talking about ballpark figures. And for me, the difference between, I look at disruption, I look at temporary classrooms, I look at what it's going to do to the students for 2 or 3 years going through the high school. And I just don't think there's enough differential between option 2 and option 3 to put everybody through an ad run. It just doesn't give the district what it needs or wants or desires, yet the new option does. So for me, it's pretty clear set, given these numbers and reimbursement or not, what's the right way to go. So I just as soon get the design team a direction and let them start getting to the next stage sooner than later. That would be my opinion. Just because we can debate these numbers all the time, but it's really important to just keep moving on design and start getting to a point that really is going to make a difference to these numbers and to the whole program. And I think they need as much time as they can possibly get to do that.
I will also say that it's not as significant, it won't be as significant of a difference in the extra reimbursement, because MSBA has gone back and applied a lot of new caps on how much they will reimburse. Like they only reimburse up to $360 per square foot for construction. They only reimburse OPM and AE fees up to 500 square feet, $500 per square foot. So, once you have take all those caps into consideration, the additional reimbursement you actually end up with is pretty minimal.
Lynn?
It is a benefit, but it's not as great as one might expect.
Lynn, what is the square footage dollar amount that we're looking at here on these estimates?
Oh, it's on the order of $678 a square foot for the construction.
So almost $300 a square foot more than what they'll reimburse?
Yes.
Jonathan, you had a question or comment?
No, just a comment. And, my reason for asking the question really is just to see if there is sort of a large difference between the two. I mean, I think, based on what you're describing, Lynn, I mean, my guess would be that they kind of end up in the same ballpark in terms of the level of state participation. When you factor out kind of the temporary classrooms and then factor in the enhanced reimbursement, it feels like it's probably a wash. My inclination would be that in that case, I would certainly shade towards option 3, the new option. But I wanted to ask the question because if we did end up at a place where the reimbursement was like, $20, $30, $40 million different, I would just feel that I'd want to understand that before we made a decision. Again, I think we're kind of in the ballpark with both of these scenarios right now, but if there was a material difference in the reimbursement, and it doesn't sound like there is, then that could be, that could influence some of the discussion, I would think.
Lynn, would you agree there is no big difference in the reimbursement between option 2 and 3?
There will be a difference, but it won't be as big, like I said, as in terms of the effective reimbursement, won't be as large as you might imagine. Again, because they put so many caps on here, your effective reimbursement rate has kind of been marginalized across any option you do.
Is the square footage for option 2, the dollar amount per square foot, is that the same? 300, the 600?
No, there's a different number for renovation versus new construction on that. The blended amount, if you give me a minute, I can look
All
it
right,
up.
while you're figuring out math, John, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask kind of the same thing that Jonathan was just asking about the difference on the reimbursable there, because I think that, may come into a factor if it's a material number. Outside of that, I think I agree with Chip too, that, between looking at the numbers differences here, the total cost is, within like 2% of each of the option 2 and option 3. And with the disruption and hearing from the district that option 3 is preferred, I think, to me that, that would be, the way I would lean as well, unless Lynn comes back with some math telling us that it's a $30 million, that could maybe sway me, but without hearing that, I think option 3 to me is preferred.
Thanks, John. Janine?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. I wanted to first comment on people's concern about the cost estimate. For one thing, I think most people who have paid any attention over the last couple of years, they've seen that costs have been unpredictable, going up and down. And so for us to come up with a number now, and it possibly changes in one direction or another, I have a hard time understanding why they would not, how they would be surprised by that, considering it's been a constant for our world for the last year or two. And secondly, I think any other construction that the state is dealing with would have that same problem. So we would not be the only school project that would vary from our estimate. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. Secondly, this building has already gone through an add-on renovation. I don't think it should have another one. I can imagine we'd be able to find so many weird problems and have definitely a lot of those add-ons that if they try to do it yet a third time. So and hearing, like, once again, the disruption and that the administration wants a new building, I'm completely in support of a new building and not an add-on reno.
Thanks. Lynn?
So the blended rate for total is $641 a square foot for reno and addition.
And the new one was 670?
I think it was, make sure I'm just telling, 676.
We're not well over our cap.
Yes. Oh. And I will say, I think that the square footage of the square footage is pretty equal.
Okay.
Up there.
Janine, did you have anything else?
No, I don't. Sorry, I'll take
Okay.
my hand down.
That's okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments or discussion? John?
Yeah, just one more follow-up, I guess. If we didn't make a decision tonight, because maybe there's some questions about this reimbursement rate, is there an understanding that these costs aren't final, but it should at least give us directional information? If we were to hold off on making a final decision, Lynn, is that something that you would be able to provide us next meeting or in the interim before the meeting of, take those cost estimates and put down for us what the, estimated reimbursement at the state would be? Or is that not able to be done at this point?
I can do it. I just caution you again, it would be for comparison purposes only, because it's really hard to sometimes get it exactly right as to what MSBA considers eligible and ineligible. We usually go through this dance with them on every project where, we're trying to guess what it is and they make a different move sometimes. So
I mean, we didn't know what they were gonna end up with at the Galvin till the last payment.
Yeah,
I mean, so actually drawn from the processes, we at town meeting actually vote to fund the entire amount.
Yeah, I understand that. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if you were here for Galvin. I don't know when you moved into town or whatever, but there is an interesting process that you go through, that you fund the entire amount. And then you go from there.
All right, if there are any
Yeah,
other
and-
questions, well, go ahead, Lynn, I'm sorry.
no, I'm just gonna, so again, it would just be for comparison purposes, anything I provided for you.
And Lynn, what's your gut that the reimbursement would, if we're talking, or the differential, do you think it's in the millions, 10 millions?
I would
mean,
say,
what's your gut?
I would say maybe after you're all things considered, it could be around a couple million. But when you consider the extended time to do an ad reno, the cost for temporary classrooms and everything else sort of offsets a lot of the benefit you get from an ad reno. And I don't know, I mean, SMMA has done quite a few ad renos, and maybe they could offer something to that regard.
Helen?
Yeah, I would concur with what Lynn is saying. There's an extended duration to construction, therefore more general conditions. So it's a piece of it.
Phil?
Hey, when would be the next cost estimate we'd see? So we pick one of these choices, the design team goes full bore on that. How far from now would we likely see the next cost estimate for this project?
It would be near the end of the schematic design phase. And at that point, like I said, we would hope that you would concur that we should bring a CM on board, and then we would end up with 3 estimators going through a reconciliation process and trying to get to the right number, because that's the estimate where we have to be as on target as we can be, and as conservative as is prudent, because that budget is what's going to have to take us through the whole project.
And when is that in the bottom of this screen? Do you think around June of this
I think
year?
it's probably September of this year.
So
October, Lynn, I think.
fall. So fall this year. We'll keep it very
Yeah,
vague.
fall,
Fall. And then at that point, we still don't know the reimbursement amount, right? Like as Chip just made the point, I think.
So we
that-
will have had discussions with MSBA. We will have worked out their total project budget form, and we will have an idea of, well, it will be the starting point on what MSBA's reimbursement is. As Chip said, once you go into construction, there's all sorts of, like they only pay up to 1% of the construction contingency. They'll only reimburse up to 1% of that. And as of late, they even changed their policy on how much of the owner's contingency use that they will reimburse. And I think it's 0.2% of 1%, 0.2, a quarter of a percent, something like that. So, you have to be very, so as you move along, you could be incurring more for the town to pay as opposed to MSBA reimburse as you approve change orders and whatnot.
Okay, and
But you
like,
will have a basis of what the minimum that they will reimburse at the end of schematic design.
well, I'm sure this, I came in sort of, the Galvin was just done, so I sort of missed like what happened, like in terms of the Galvin project got approved, it had to go to a town meeting, like, so the whole PR of this project, and I know we're really in the beginning and these numbers aren't the numbers, but people are immediately going to start asking, XYZ taxpayer, how are we paying for this? How much of this project, how much is it gonna cost me? And I think, I don't know when in that process, the town administration and the finance committee gets involved in this project to start dissecting these options to those questions, because that's gonna lead up to the vote, right? Like, I think the Galvin, I didn't live in Wakefield at the time, didn't pass 1 or 2 times. I don't know how many, but and Joe and Chip, you've been through these projects, and sorry that this is maybe a routine process, but I'm just curious how that all gets worked out outside of this. Like, how does the town handle these estimates and present it to the town so people have good information from the start, I guess, to start thinking about?
So Phil, as
We might have somebody on that can answer that
Yeah, I
question.
was just gonna say, Mr. Mayo.
Mr. Mayo. If he's still on.
Glad I fell asleep.
When
there he
Phil
is.
started talking, I finished the potato chips, so. Yeah, we're already looking at those numbers, Phil. So, based on what I know today, I would be interested in Lynn's analysis, to fine tune them. But just like on the Galvin, I mean, we will go in with an estimate because things will change when we go into SBA. And we went in many times in the Galvin and fought it out to get, a little bit more for this this area, a little bit less for that. But, if we're looking at, 40% plus of the entire project, remember that, it's more of allowable costs. And then we have these per foot escalators, but I'm ready when Lynn has hers to have that available in a very ballpark area. And it is kind of hard to do right now because I don't want to tell someone it's going to be X and it's, Y after we get some more numbers, but we're already putting together those schedules via a debt exclusion route.
Right. Okay.
And we'll give price.
Phil, it'd be a debt exclusion.
Yeah.
And as Steve indicated there, it's a little too early to take a look at some of those hard numbers, but we'll be starting to do that.
Yeah, no, it's just more what I hear. People know I'm on these committees and what's it gonna, and everyone knows this, everyone who sees, what's it gonna cost me? Everyone just wants to know that. And I just am curious how that works in these big projects with these estimates. So
that's okay, Phil. I want to know it too.
Yeah.
Will they reimburse for the statue of Chip in front of the school? I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, definitely.
That's a big statue, my God.
Yeah, there's not enough bronze.
Do we have an escalation factor on that?
Escalation is way too high.
So Phil, what I will do, or what we will have our bond counsel do, I should say, is do it at price points. And we'll say, if your house is assessed at $500,000 a year, here's what you can anticipate the debt exclusion cost would be. And if you're at 600, here's what you can anticipate. And that's what we did with Galvin. So people really knew kind of where they were going to be. And remember, every year, hopefully every year, the tax levy grows, new growth, and so as we get more growth, you spread out that debt among more people. It's possible that amount will come down on its own every year. Of course, your assessment may go up anyway, but the debt exclusion will go down. So we'll give those estimates between our bond counsel and our assessor. We're already kind of crunching those numbers and can plug in when we get a little harder when that hones in from Lynn.
Okay, thanks for explaining. Just again, first time going through a big project like this, so just trying to understand how the wheels start rolling. So thanks.
All right, any other questions or comments? Are there anybody? Are there anyone who objects to making a decision tonight?
Well, Joe, I figured I'd make a motion and then people can either vote yay or nay on the motion.
Well, I want to, one of the problems I'm having is that we don't have a whole lot of the members of the school building committee. A lot of the people that have been on all the time are not on tonight. And I'm a little disappointed by that, but there's not much I can do. But I have not heard any objections. So Go right ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that in review of the 1, 2, and 3 schemes, knowing that 1 is not totally non-reversible, 2 being the ad reno, and 3 being the new construction on the Beasley Oval, that we give our vote and SMMA direction to proceed to the next step with the design model 3, the new school on the Beasley Oval, as the preferred direction.
I hear a second.
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 All right. Tom and Phil, second and second. Okay. Discussion. Is there anybody wishes to discuss this motion who has a serious problem with going forward? Or questions regarding the options? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine,
Yes.
thank you. Lynn,
Okay. our
Joe, is it
next-
unanimous?
Lynn,
it is-
Joe's being silent on that question.
Our next PBC meeting is scheduled for the 14th. We're
It is?
required, yes, if that's okay with everybody.
Next week.
Next week.
do we need to?
Yes,
Oh.
because we're required to give you a presentation on CM at risk versus design bid build, and you guys have to vote on which construction delivery method.
Didn't
wanna
you
go
just
forward.
give that presentation and we can vote right now?
If you want to vote it, that's good with me. I mean,
No, I'll let Mr. Bertrand make that decision. I've heard enough of those speeches.
Yeah, we just had it for the public safety building, right?
Yeah.
it's the exact
Right,
same
so
one.
I don't think there's anybody on this board that hasn't heard it at this point.
Is anybody objecting to skipping the review of the CM at risk versus the CM?
Can I make a couple of comments? Based on the dollar value of this project, you're going to have a very limited pool, if any, of general contractors that could be bonded for this job. So that automatically almost pushes it to a CM at risk project, because the CMs have a lot larger bonding capacity.
And quite frankly, it would be crazy not to do this project without a contractor on board for a lot of the design discussion.
Right, and we would not be able to bring a contractor on to help us with the schematic design estimate, which is going to be our total project budget.
Knowing that the history of the CM at risk that we did with the Galvin, and that what we're doing in the public safety building, I would recommend that the permanent building committee vote to go with the CM at risk model. It has worked for us in the past, and I don't see why it would not work for us in the future.
I also think that, you know, if there's any issue with cost, we have a CM on board that helps us keep the budget in line as we move along. I mean, I had a project back when we were, you know, the market spiked 15%. And if we hadn't been in a situation with a CM where we could go back and kind of do some value engineering to make sure we had enough money to keep going with the project, we would have had to stop the project. So there is real benefit there in, you know, helping us weather the volatility if we have a CM on board.
Does anybody have an objection, either on the permanent building committee or the school building committee, for us to vote tonight on whether to use a CM or a CM at risk? Hearing none, Mr. Tarbell.
I move that we give our OPM left field direction to move forward with the process of advertising for a C and making this project a CM at risk project and moving forward with the advertising and the selection process there too.
Is there a second?
Just one note, we have to apply technically to the Inspector General's office for
Yeah.
approval, which
Yeah,
they
yeah.
will give us. So we'll do that first.
Yeah, we know the whole process. Lynn, we've partaked in this dance before. Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion?
I guess I'm not against, I'm just wondering, is there any effect to the budgets or anything like that? Or is that something we'll have to deal with down the road?
The estimates have been, have taken into consideration CM at risk. Because typically it's a bit higher upfront costs. But given the schedule efficiencies that you can, it sort of offsets itself at the end of the project.
I guess I'm more asking now, like during schematic design and our budgets with OPM and the designer.
Oh, no, I
Does
think
that-
we have enough money in our other budget line to bring someone on, and we wouldn't bring them on. We'll probably bring them on in the last 3 months so that they can get familiar with the project and then do the estimate. And then they would go on hold until the project was approved. So it's short money for the 3 months that they would be on.
Lynn, that money of a CM at risk, is that reimbursable from the MSBA?
Yes,
That's part of our 2 million?
yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding CM or CM at risk? Hearing none. Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Janine,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Do you want to have the April 14th PBC meeting?
Not if we don't have to.
You're
we
asking
have
Joe
to?
that?
Okay.
That was a silly question, Lynn.
So then the next you will hear from us is we will give you the preferred schematic report submission on April 21st.
All right, are we
And-
meeting on the 21st?
No, we're just going to give you the report. You'll
Okay.
have a week to look at it.
All right,
And then we will meet on the 28th for you to approve us to submit. And I made a mistake here. I should have put the Black Box Theater underneath the public forum, not the permanent.
right.
building.
On the 27th of April at 7 o'clock, we're going to have not a virtual Zoom meeting, but an actual meeting at the Black Box Theater for a public forum on a high school and the design options and costs.
Is that Wednesday, the 27th?
Correct.
Yes,
Not Thursday, the 28th?
Correct.
Okay, how come we're doing Wednesday?
because that's the only date I could get for WCAT.
Oh, okay.
This says the 28th.
That's the permanent building
That's
committee.
the permanent building committee.
Oh, it says black
Above
box.
that is the 20.
The block box should be in the public forum above.
I
Right.
just put it in the wrong box.
Okay, so the 27th is the Black Box Theater. Got it.
Yeah.
So you get 2 weeks off and then 2 meetings in 1 week.
2 nights in a row with you, Helen.
Got it?
Oh, boy.
Yes.
They
All
always
right.
come to get you, those meetings. They
Yeah.
always come to get you.
I'm marking the calendar now.
Joe,
now
that's
got
a
a pinpoint
conflict
on the
with
14th, Joe.
ZBA, so I'll be missing
Yeah, I
the
know. I know.
public forum. Yeah, no, that's all, just so you know.
That's all right. We'll discuss your,
My
memorabilia.
bronzing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll do like what they did in Star Wars with, no, anyway, go ahead.
In that meeting, we'll probably focus on the preferred option.
Right, and we'll have, I noticed today, Lynn, we got an email from MSBA for the May 4th.
Yes, so we have to put together a presentation for the MSBA Facilities Assessment Subcommittee. Those meetings will be assigned either May 18th or June 1st to attend a meeting with the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee to present the project.
Okay, when I read the email, I thought it was May 4th that we'd have to be there.
No, it's just we have to admit what our presentation is going to be.
All right. All right, anything else?
That's it.
Is there any other matters not anticipated for the agenda? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I so move, Mr. Chairman, that we adjourn.
And anybody want to second that, or how about everybody? No? And if you're all in favor, just click leave meeting. Thanks, everybody.